You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show.
I'd had cereal before, of course. My parents weren't strict about the consumption of cereal, nor did they give my brother and I carte blanche to eat all the cereal we wanted. But we always did have a few boxes of sugary goodness in our house. I remember Captain Crunch being popular, especially with Crunch Berries. I also vividly remember being so excited to spend a day at Marine World Africa, USA with my aunt that I threw up an entire bowl of Fruit Loops in the back seat of her car. So I had plenty of experience with these kind of cereals. Now, when I was younger, I would spend 2 weeks every summer at my grandparents' house in Oregon. My mother's parents would host 14 nights of camping, lava cave exploring, firewood gathering, fishing, and much more every single year. I'm not sure what their regular breakfast cereal habits were, but I can distinctly remember calling a 1-800 number from the back of a box of Captain Crunch to enter some sort of contest as a kid. So kid-friendly cereals were in the house. Of course, as I'm now remembering all this, my grandparents were the age I am now or even younger, so it's not really out of the ordinary that they would have these kids' cereals in the house. But on one trip, while deciding which cereal I wanted to eat, I saw a box of cereal that was different than all the others. It was smaller than the other boxes, thinner too. When you picked it up, however, it was much heavier than the Pops or Smacks in those other boxes. The box was much plainer as well. It wasn't emblazoned with cuckoo birds, tigers, or cookie bandits. It just had a picture of the cereal in the bowl and a brand name that sounded nothing like what you would be pouring into the bowl. This was a box of Grape Nuts. Grape Nuts were developed in 1897 by Charles William Post, or CW for short. He developed a batter that, when it came out of the oven in sheets, it was hard as a rock. He would then break up the sheets and put them through a coffee grinder, and Grape Nuts were born. From the start, Grape Nuts were sold as a cereal that would enhance health and vitality. It would fill you up, not fill you out. It became a popular food for expedition and exploration groups as it had a very high resistance to spoilage. In World War II, the hearty cereal made its way into the jungle rations of the Allied forces. Now, don't let the plain box fool you. In the early days, Grape Nuts were marketed to kids via the power of comic strips. Little Albie could perform Popeye-like feats of strength after eating just one bowl. Grape Nuts would also help Volto from Mars recharge his alien abilities after performing some sort of astounding, heroic acts of daring do. Later, when television was all the rage, Andy Griffith and Don Knotts promoted Grape Nuts as Andy Taylor and Barney Fife from The Andy Griffith Show. And Grape Nuts is widely credited as being the first widespread product to use coupons when Post offered a penny-off coupon to entice people to try a box. And then, in the 1980s, I stood in my grandparents' kitchen on Homedale Road in Klamath Falls, Oregon, and I wanted to give them a try. My grandmother didn't think I was going to like them and tried to dissuade me, but I insisted. So into a small white bowl with green flowers around the edge clinked hundreds of tiny little grape nut kernels, followed by a generous dousing of milk. I took the bowl to the table and sat behind it. The cereal didn't snap, crackle, or pop, it just sat there. I took a spoon and I dipped it in, filling it with a small mountain of grape nuts, curious what they would taste like. Into my mouth they went, and that first crunch was deafening. Other cereals became soggy in milk. These were just as hard as if you were eating them dry. My teeth ground together, reducing the kernels further into mush. This wasn't a sugary cereal for sure, but it wasn't bad. Every night during my 2-week trip to visit my grandparents, right before bed, I was allowed to have a bowl of cereal. Grape Nuts became my go-to choice. I will say, however, that I would often pour a ton of sugar on top to sweeten it up a bit. And at 8 years old, I felt very grown up eating and enjoying a cereal that was for adults. I knew that this was a cereal that my friends at school wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, and that's why I liked it. It made me feel special, unique. Even today, many decades later, a bowl of Grape Nuts before bed really does hit the spot. This episode of the GrantCast was written and produced by Grant Baciocco. For more information, visit GrantCast.com. This episode is copyright 2020 Saturday Morning Media, all rights reserved. www.saturdaymorningmedia.com.
You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.